things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Chase Station.
Today is Tuesday, May 20th, and the New York Mets have hit their first speed bump of the season. 3 losses in a row. 4 losses out of their last 5. Mets players are back in New York Post headlines. Fake news is running rampant. It's also May. We're going to talk all about what has been a very crazy week, not only for the Mets, but for the both of us as well. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, a.k.a. Jolly Olive, joining me back home from Ohio after his brief SNY pre- and post stint is Jerry Blevins. Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm lovely. Glad to be back. It was a beautiful weekend in New York, man. Awesome baseball. Just a fun time to be in the city. And I'm good. Glad to be home, though.
Yeah, it was kind of a frustrating weekend, not only for the Mets, but for us as well, Jerry, because, you know, I had a bit of a fiasco this weekend that I want to kick off the show with, if that's okay, if you'll indulge me.
Please do. Let's air some grievances.
Jerry, you're not in New York a lot. You're in New York for the big series, and you were in New York this past week for Mets Yanks, and we were going to get lunch together. It was going to be nice. I hadn't seen you in person in a while, and then the NJ Transit strike happened, and me and you are pro-union, you know, and we're glad that it's already done with. Hopefully everyone got what they were fighting for, but it also happened to lie just on like the 2 days that you were here, which was tough, which meant that I couldn't see you. So I was sad about that.
I mean, you could have walked.
I could have walked. I could have been a better friend, you know, but there's congestion fees now and stuff like that too, so I wasn't driving there. But Sunday night, I get Saturday night, I get a text from Jimmy and Jake saying they got press passes to the game. They got 2 extra tickets. Do you want to go? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. So me and my good friend Joseph Solano, went to the Mets-Yankees game on Sunday. It was not a fun game by the end. You guys all know that by now. Parked in a valet lot outside the stadium. It's something I've done many times before. Never really had an issue with it. And I've always kind of had the thought, gee, I wonder what happens if the attendee loses your keys. Like what happens in that scenario? I mean, I hope that never happens to me. Well, after that brutal Sunday night loss, Jerry, I returned to that lot. I stayed the whole time. I didn't leave early. You know, I stuck it out to the end. I wore it in the crowd from the Yankees fans because that's what a true Mets fan would do. Went back to the lot, was one of the first people there, and then I just see frantic looks on the attendees' faces when they read my card and they look up and they don't see a key there. Turns out I'm now an expert on the situation. I now know what it's like. They lost my key. I had to Uber back home, a nice fat $100 Uber. I spent the entire day yesterday. I kind of needed to catch up on work and, you know, do the show with you, which would have been nice. I spent that whole day getting a new key, getting all sorted, getting reimbursed for the Uber and the parking and all that stuff. So that's how I spent my Monday, which was great. And, you know, it's just been kind of a great 4 days overall. I think me and the Mets are kind of aligned in our trajectories when it comes to life. When they have a bad weekend, I guess, so do I. I don't know.
Hey, I get it. That's not a fun situation. Just the logistics of it. The fact that you lost a whole day and you have to like invoice. I get it. I got a quick one-upper.
Yeah. You're going to one-up me. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, not for me. My neighbor recently went into Cleveland for his son's Battle of the Bands. Okay. Valeted his van. He's got this really cool Sprinter van. Valeted it. The valet didn't know the height.
Oh,
Drove
no.
into the top section and got the car stuck and wedged in the top. So and this is like a vintage like Sprinter van.
Of course.
Really nice one, but it was custom too, and they have to get it completely redone. So that's a fiasco on another level too. And he was out. You know, this is a 2.5 hour drive.
Sure.
From the house. So
you know, that's how I try to live my life. If I ever have a bad day, maybe someone had it worse. I don't know. Maybe someone, because no damage done to my car. I took care of her yesterday. Got her oil change. Got her a car wash.
Just annoying.
Yeah,
it annoying. Doesn't take away from what happened to you and how much that sucks and the weight and like sitting there knowing something's wrong.
And like standing there when the line of people are like, did they lose your keys? And like each and every person asks the same question. It's like, yeah.
I honestly don't know how that's possible.
I don't know how it is either. And they never recovered them. So I have a whole new key fob. I lost like some stuff on my keychain that I really liked. Actually, it was tough. I had like a gift from my girlfriend's dad, like a really nice Swiss Army knife. That's just gone now, which is brutal because I think I only had it for like a month maybe.
I didn't even think about what's on the keychain.
Yeah. It was tough, but it could have been worse. The car could have been damaged, whatever. Enough about me and you, Jerry, because we're here to talk about something else. We're here to talk about the New York Mets, who are on a bit of a skid right now. They were playing mostly middling baseball throughout the month of May, grabbing series wins against teams they should beat. They actually beat the Pirates in a series that we're probably not going to touch too much on because, honestly, the Mets didn't play a great brand of baseball, and they still won a series because the Pirates are a bit of a mess right now. That's a whole national story with Paul Skeens and all that. The bigger story, the bigger thing to chew on is the Subway Series. Round 1 in the Bronx. The Mets lose 2 out of 3. Their stars don't perform. There's not a lot of silver linings to pull. The biggest story of all is Juan Soto. He went 1 for 10 in the series, 4 walks. He was at the brunt of, I think, the loudest boos I've ever heard in a baseball stadium. I went to 2015 NLDS Game 4, so when Chase Utley got introduced on the Dodgers, I heard those boos. They were loud. I think these were louder. So Yankee fans, they really brought it this weekend for a guy that brought them to the World Series last year and then skipped town. It was definitely good baseball cinema. You would have liked to be on the other side of it. But honestly, the thing I keep saying is I think the Mets were lucky to even get Game 2 and not get swept in the series because in every inning of all 27 innings that were played in the series, they did not look like the better team at all.
I'm gonna pull out my scorebook real quick. Give me a sec.
Yeah, you got that on the legal pad?
I don't feel like that. I don't feel like they got lucky to get one. I feel like it feels like that, if that makes sense. They're in every ball game, and their offense is in an absolute landslide right now, all at the same time. That's why it feels, but they're still working at bats. They're still getting their walks. They're still getting on base. They're just not hitting with runners in scoring position at all. And it's kind of been that way the whole season.
Pretty much. I'd say so.
And they're half a game out of first place. They've got a great record. It feels extra because, you wanted them to perform. Juan Soto, which we'll dive into, is in the midst of it. Getting a taste of New York stardom when you're not, MVP caliber at the time. So it's everything's compacted on. It's not the end of the world, but there's some issues that are coming to the forefront. And this is the first time the team has lost 3 games in a row.
Which is wild.
All season.
Good stat.
They were the last team in Major League Baseball to hold on to not losing 3 in a row. It shows you their resiliency. It shows you the ability to get up off the canvas. It shows you how good the rotation is to be able to shut something down. There were some really good performances, especially, in the rotation. Watching David Peterson was excellent. He dueled against Max Fried was unreal. The team got lucky to score a couple runs off him because that's what good teams do. You scratch when you can. They got lucky to score off of David Peterson in the first inning. An error, bad defense. That's a big issue too. Bad infield defense led to 2 runs in the first, and that's all they got. He was excellent. He chose good spots to attack guys. He chose good spots to pitch around guys. He was excellent. And Max Fried was an absolute ace. And you had a chance, and the game slipped away in the 8th inning there. So it happens. But there's a lot of all of it happening at the same time that feels like the world is, the sky is falling. We'll talk us off the ledge a little bit, but there is a lot to talk about, a lot to be worried about. Soto conversation is an issue that we're going to dive into, but it's not as bad as it feels.
Yeah, I think we should preface this pod by saying that if you're a new Shea Station listener, which I think most of you have been with us for a while, this is it's an optimistic pod, and we like to spin things and highlight silver linings and, keep people grounded. So if you're looking for outrage and if you're looking for pure emotion from that outrage, this might not be the show you're going to want to listen to. And there's plenty of other Mets pods out there that I can recommend. But I will say, you kind of outlined like the headlines of the show in your previous talk there. The first one is that the Mets are in every game. And there's a great statistic from Anthony DeComo's recent article about the Subway Series that I want to highlight. The Mets have played 48 games. They've won 29 of them. In 18 of the other 19, including last night against Boston, which we're not going to talk too much about today, they've at least managed to bring the tying run to the on-deck circle in the last 3 innings. So they're in essentially every game. The only game that they haven't done that was that stinker in the finale of the Pirates series. But there are concerns to be raised. I think we'll go through the game recaps and we'll kind of go through it organically. I'll start us off in game 1, which kind of feels like just the forgotten game of the bunch because it felt over before it really began. Really cool start to the game. Juan Soto comes out to the chorus of boos. I think those were the loudest boos of the weekend because it was the first time he stepped out, tipped his helmet, which I thought was a really nice touch. I thought that was going to be sort of the theme of the weekend, like Juan Soto embracing the boos, but slowly but surely it felt like that kind of went away. He did walk 3 times in this game. Carlos Rodon wanted nothing to do with him, which I do respect to a degree. Tyler McGill is the story in this game. Totally lost it in the 3rd inning. We're seeing post-April Tyler McGill again. 6 base runners in that 3rd inning, 4 walks, including a bases-loaded walk to Oswald Peraza, which was the nail in the coffin for him. Just a miserable start, one of the worst of his career. Unfortunately, he came in a pretty big spot where the Mets needed him to deal a quality outing. His ERA has risen from 1.74 to 3.74 in his past 3 outings. The Mets go 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position. That's a theme this whole series. And they kind of just lose this one quietly, which felt like obviously a bad way to start the series, but it still felt like there was an air of optimism that they could come back and make this thing interesting. And game 2, I will say they looked a lot better. They obviously won that game. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on Tyler McGill's outing? The initial boos, the defense, any of that?
The boos, I thought, like I said, like you said, I thought that this would be an acknowledgement. Again, we'll dive into Soto, so I'm not going to get it. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper. McGill, horrible couple outings. But I am optimistic that he'll turn it around because I think he's a different pitcher than he was in years past. I think he's more mature. I think he's smarter. I think he knows himself a little bit better. Got caught up in the moment, trying to be perfect, understanding that the combination of him not having control of his fastball and the way that the New York Yankees, their philosophy at the dish, it's a tough combination when you don't have your good command against a team that makes you throw strikes. It was a recipe for disaster, and it worked.
The broadcast was they nailed it on the head with, one, the Yankees offense has been so good because they're selectively aggressive. They'll either work the count or they'll swing first pitch, and that's why they're first in so many major offensive categories. Paul Goldschmidt's been so good for them. But the other side of it is that, and Ronnie Darling was on this as well, McGill had his fastball that night, but didn't seem to trust it a whole lot, was using his slider a ton and just could not locate it for the life of him. And the Yankees were able to work him into a really nasty pitch count early, and that kind of just exacerbated the whole thing. Yeah,
the combination of the Yankees being the best offensive team versus fastballs, him not being able to throw it where he wanted, and them being, lackluster against sliders, like it just snowballed on him a little bit. And it's going to happen. It happens to everybody. It happens to Cy Young winners throughout the season. It's just, all of it coming together, the narrative of him being great in the early season and then falling apart. Like it's falling into that narrative, but I truly believe that McGill can bounce back and will. I think he will bounce back. I think Jeremy Hefner and the brain trust of the pitching will be able to get him in the right space mentally and to tweak his mechanics back to where he needs to. I'm not overly worried about Tyler McGill. Again, you're going to have these. That's a good offensive team, and you had a rough night. I don't think it's more than that. It feels like it could be, but I think where I've doubted Tyler McGill in the past, his ability to make adjustments. He's already made some adjustments. I expect him to get back on track.
Well, he's going to have a big outing tomorrow night against the Red Sox, facing Garrett Crochet in the finale of that series. So look forward to that.
The good thing is he doesn't have to face Garrett Crochet. He has to face their offense.
That's true. Well, Garrett Crochet with a bat, I've never seen that.
That's the thing that gets lost. It's awesome to watch David Peterson duel against Max Fried, but the truth is he's dueling against their offense. It just happens to be against, the other side. A guy is, it's special. You those classic pitchers duel, but it's really, Garrett Crochet's the offense. So
yeah. Game 2 kind of had a surprise pitchers duel here. Griffin Canning and Clark Schmidt put on kind of a show in this game. Griffin Canning continues to impress. He managed to work around a couple solo home runs. His 6th inning wasn't great, but 5 1/3, 2 earned runs, 7 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts for him. His ERA is now down to 2.47 on the season. That's 8th in the National League among qualified starters, which is great. We're going to talk a lot about infield defense in this episode, but they are a highlight in Game 2, specifically Pete Alonso's throw in the 6th inning to cut down the go-ahead runner. That ended up being a huge run in the game because the Mets won the game 3-2. They had to walk a tightrope in this game, especially late. Reed Garrett did not have his best stuff, got a key double play, but walked 3 in the inning, narrowly escaped that 8th inning with no runs scored. The Mets take the lead on a bases-loaded sac fly. And then basically, besides Griffin Canning, in my mind, the only real highlight of this series, Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning of Game 2 looked the best he has all season long, touched 100 multiple times. 4 of his 11 hardest pitches of the season came in this outing, hit 100 twice, struck out Austin Wells and Aaron Judge to close out the game. 10 for 10 in save opportunities. The Mets get a key 3-2 win in Game 2, and there was a bit of optimism in the air heading into that finale. But this game was honestly, as nervous as I was, a very fun baseball game to watch, very back and forth. I really like these kind of like close, low-scoring games that go to the last inning. Game 3 was like that until the end of it. But Game 2, we come out on the right side of things.
Game 2, yeah, you nailed it. Griffin Canning looked spectacular. Scattering 7 hits, he did a great job. He looked that's the best, continuation of what we've seen from him. He's doing phenomenal. He's smart. The way he attacked, the way he read swings, like he's a skilled pitcher and a smart pitcher, and that is a fun combination to watch. You jump to Edwin Diaz. I'm gonna get there, but I would be remiss if I don't mention how awesome Huascar Brazoban was.
Oh yeah. He has a special outing the next night too.
Exactly. He came in an inning and 2/3 of dominance in a spot that you needed that. He looks phenomenal. He looks at his best form. But for me, you talked about that highlight of Pete Alonso throwing the ball out at home. To me, that's not a highlight. That's just a big league play that he needs to be made. High school play needs to be made. College play that needs to be made. It's not an easy play, but it's easy enough to where a guy that plays that position should make that play. He did it. Wasn't like an amazing play, just worked. That's how I feel. Clark Schmidt, to me, did not look amazing. The offense made him look that way. He had 5 walks, 3 hits. That's a lot of traffic that the Mets just didn't capitalize on. They struggled with runners in scoring position. But I want to talk about 2 guys. Reed Garrett has been amazing all season long. He needs to reset. Can't find the strike zone. Happens. This is part of what goes on as a bullpen pitcher. You go through these. We watch slumps on the offensive side. This is a little bit of a slump for him. This is the perfect time for your manager. He gave him a few outings to try to right the ship, because a lot of times you'll have a rough outing. The manager puts you back in, you find it again, and then you're back into the groove. He needs to take a step back from high pressure, high leverage, and get it back under his belt and then launch back in. Maybe not that setup guy, but he'll be fine. Not worried about him, but he needs to lock it in. But Edwin Diaz, this is a great win. But I said it on the post game. To me, this was fun for me. This is what I did in the post game.
Sure.
We were on the little RoboCam. I was like, zoom in. Edwin Diaz is all the way back.
Yeah, that's how it felt. That's how it felt.
I have been wary to say this. I never expected him to be back to that level. His ability to throw glove side, his slider was consistently sharp, even when he backs it up. This is vintage 2022 Edwin Diaz. Velo was up. He had that zip on the fastball. I had that jump, not just velo, but the way it rode in the zone. That slider was sharp. It's not the most movement of a slider, but it playing off of that effectively wild at times to where the hitters aren't comfortable. This was the best Edwin Diaz I've seen since 2022. He needs to harness whatever he did there. I don't know if it's the level, because this is what it felt like to me up until this point.
Sure.
It felt like he was feeling his way through. Like even the outings where it felt like a continuation of spring training where he's like still battling himself, still trying to find his mechanics. 94, 96, didn't feel like he had that like let's get it done, adrenaline rush. This is the playoff atmosphere. I feel like that's kind of what's been lacking. He had it.
Yeah.
He had it in the Bronx, and you needed it. And to see that it's there, this might be where he can tap into and remember how dominant he is and continue this run of just letting it eat, man. Coming in with that, I'm going to shut you down mentality. I don't have to work on anything. I'm just going to throw my dominant stuff, and you're going to go down 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
It's a nice story to highlight because at this time last year, we were fresh off the Josh Bell home run in Miami, where I think that's probably rock bottom for Edwin Diaz, I'd say, other than 2019, obviously. He said to Anthony DeComo after the game, right now I'm doing whatever I want on the mound, which is a very welcome sign. We like to see a confident Edwin Diaz, not a wary Edwin Diaz. It's a great quote. But I mean, you see it in the velocity. 200-mile-per-hour pitches in this outing after doing so one time in 17 outings before it. That feels like a great omen going forward. So hopefully the Mets can capitalize on what's going to be, hopefully, a really good stretch of Edwin Diaz pitching. That led us to the finale. Sunday Night Baseball. Jolly Olive and Joe's McFly in the crowd. Up the third base line. Max Fried versus David Peterson, a matchup we've seen many times before with Max Fried in a different uniform. I didn't have a home plate view, so I couldn't see how nasty the pitches were, but I did go back and watch some of the highlights afterward. These two guys were on it. It's unfortunate about that first inning, that Mark Vientos error. I have been begging the Mets to kind of just let Brett Baty play third. He made a couple really nice plays in game 2, a couple really nice plays last night in Boston. Vientos got the start at third, made an error in the first inning. He's currently rated out as the second worst third baseman in baseball based on outs above average. Hopefully he can round that out because the Mets are going to continue to play him at third. I don't think they're going to hard pivot to that degree. But Max Fried looked really good. He had Juan Soto's number the entire night, especially that one at bat, I think in the 6th inning, where he had Soto bailing out on a slider, dotted a fastball, threw the slider again for, I think it was a 4-pitch K. But outside of that, these guys both went 6 innings, 2 runs allowed on the scoreboard. Jeff McNeil was the whole Mets offense, provided the RBI single. Later, he walks, gets to second base, eventually lands on third, and then scores on a wild pitch. That at-bat, Soto struck out, so that was a big run there. It's tied 2-2. Huascar Braziman, we just talked about how great he's looked. He didn't look amazing in this outing. He had to pitch a second straight day. The Yankees looked like they were a little bit more familiar with him. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Anthony Volpe up, who I think would have been the story on the Yankees end had they not won this game, because I don't know how many men he left on base. It might have been 6. He comes up, he's up 3-0, takes strike 1, and then swings at strike 2 and strike 3 that were outside of the zone. Braziman gets a huge strikeout to keep the game tied. I like this stat. He's the only pitcher in baseball this year with over 25 innings pitched and an ERA under 1. It's just Huascar Braziman. So he's been used a lot, and he's been great. He's been a godsend for the Mets bullpen. Kind of thrust into a higher circle of trust with Max Kranick's recent struggle, so it's really nice to see. Then we get to the 8th inning. The Mets, in a tie game, have a chance to keep the game tied. Pete Alonso basically gets the same play that he had in game 2, ground ball right to him, runner coming home, completely airmails the throw. I mean, not even close. Alvarez doesn't even make an attempt. He just goes to go field it off the backstop. A run scores, and then the inning just kind of snowballs from there. Genesis Cabrera comes in, strikes out Aaron Judge, which I was like, oh my God, we're going to get out of this thing with only 1 run scored. No. Cody Bellinger, grand slam, lefty, the guy he was in there to get, hits a grand slam that just sneaks over the short porch in right field. The Mets offense didn't do themselves any favors. They go 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and yet another bad performance. The story is Juan Soto, but overall, between bad defense, bad hitting in high leverage spots, and then a little, I don't know, bullpen implosion at the end, whatever you want to call it. Game 3 ended up being a disaster in what was a close game for most of it. It was a good game for most of the game. The Mets end up losing 8-2, and they lose the series in the Bronx, losing round 1 of the Subway Series.
Yeah, that was a tough one. McNeil was awesome at the plate.
Looks
You
great.
highlighted that. He was on base all 3 times, had an RBI, had 2 walks, got a good score. Grade A at bat in the 5th there to score that second run.
Yep. 2 out RBI single too, by the way. That was a big hit.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was we got lucky on that one. The infield single that Vientos hit, I've seen Max Fried make that play.
Yeah.
99 times out of 100, and he just bobbled it. And it's an infield hit single, but that was one that he got on base and they capitalized. That's what you have to do against a guy that's that good at pitching. You have to capitalize on those little mistakes. It's what they did to David Peterson in the first. The Vientos error that brought up Judge, who hit a fly ball down the right field line. And again, we're going to get into Juan Soto. To me, this was the biggest one.
Yeah.
He didn't go after it at all. Who knows if he would have caught it? But I would like to see that he could have given it a chance.
Sure.
He's not a great outfielder, but he's better than that effort.
Yeah. And it took an okay bounce. I think that ended up being a ground rule double.
Yeah, it saved.
And then Bellinger comes up the next play. I didn't have a great look. It was a ground ball down the line that Alonso couldn't get. Do you think he had a shot at it? Because
Alonso
to knock it down.
No,
at
because
least?
he had to be. He was in.
Yeah.
He was even with the bag because of the error.
Yeah.
And then the lackadaisical effort. There was runners at second and third, so he had to be in. If he's playing back, he gets the glove to that ball easy.
Yeah.
But because he had to play in because of all these extenuating circumstances that led up to that, that becomes an RBI, 2 RBI double.
Exit velo of 75 miles per hour on that double.
Yeah, to me, both of those runs are unearned.
Yeah.
But they're 1 out of 2 because one of them's an error and the other one is positional change, like a change in where you are on the field becomes an out becomes a double. So
and just so awesome of Peterson to still get through 6 innings after a first inning that was a lot of hard work that wasn't his fault. So just shout out to him.
He did a great job. He had 4 walks, but I think they were very strategic in the way he deployed those walks. He had 4 big strikeouts and a ton of ground balls.
Yep.
He pitched excellent. Stanek came in that 8th inning. I thought he pitched really well. 2 things though. Leadoff walk to Dominguez is going to kill you.
Yeah, it was a good at bat by Dominguez. I will say that. I think he went down 0-2 and worked that walk, but brutal.
That's brutal. And then a shout out to Vivas in that at bat.
At bat of the game. At bat of the series, probably 13 pitches, right?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And Stanek was pumping 100.
Yeah.
And Vivas, who's hitting $167 at the time, is fighting these off. Here's the thing. It's 3-2 and it's like 5 pitches. He just kept getting closer to timing it up. If Stanek had the trust. Here's the thing. Guy's hitting 9th and he's hitting 9th.
Yeah.
He's batting $167. You throw 100. If he throws an off-speed pitch there and gives up a hit,
that's the story.
He's going to get eaten alive.
Yep.
But I was begging for him to throw that splitty because he had fouled off 100. He's timing it up. Eventually, he's going to get to it. You have him set up, throw that splitty, trust that you know you're capable of making the right read. If he hits it there, stand at your locker and be like, look, I had him set up. He fouled off 5 straight 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I know he's hitting $167. He was in swing mode. I wanted to take advantage of that.
The brutal part is that he threw the splitty to Goldschmidt right after, and it just kind of sat in the zone and was on a tee, basically. It was rough. It was a rough thing to watch.
So that was a tough outing, and then you bring in Enesis Cabrera to face Grisham, and Grisham works a walk right off the bat. That's tough. That's a letdown. Another walk, a leadoff walk. Your first guy you come in to face, you cannot walk
That
them.
issue's creeping back into this Mets pitching staff now.
And it's costing them in the games where your offense doesn't come through. Every run is critical.
Yep.
He gets a huge strikeout of Judge, and then Bellinger guessed fastball. He got 97 up and in.
Not a bad pitch. Like I
Not a
watched the
bad
replay.
pitch.
Yeah.
And he just got to it. Bellinger to me is the story of this entire series.
Yeah, he lit it up, dude.
He lit it. He had 7 RBI himself. I think he had 7 hits.
Yeah, 7 for 11 in the
like
series.
3 or 4 walks. He had the 2 home runs. Both of them, not huge home runs, but this is a ballpark that you take advantage of that. That's what he's there to do. He protected Aaron Judge. Like, he looked really good. He was the difference in this whole series to me. He had somebody step up in that place. But I think Soto not going after that fly ball. That was a weird one. I don't want to say I don't want you to think that I'm saying he should guarantee to make that play. But I just want to see that you think that you might be able to make the play, and then if you need to shut it down when you get there, just to make sure you can play it off the bounce, shut it down then. Don't be aggressive on the first step, and then you can shut it down. That's what's happening right now. Are we ready to talk Juan Soto?
Before we fully do it,
Yeah.
and I have some thoughts too. It stinks, but I have to reiterate this. The Mets held Aaron Judge 3 for 12, no extra base hits, 5 strikeouts this series. And they still lost 2 out of 3.
That ground rule doubles.
He did have the double. You're right. Sorry. That was in game 3. That's tough. That's like a game plan executed, and you still couldn't eke out those games and keep. Even Trent Grisham was neutralized in this series too. Bellinger is the story. 7 for 11, all those RBIs, the grand slam, all that stuff. With Soto, before we get on him, because there are things to get on for sure. Did make a nice catch in the 7th. I thought that was cool. I do think it's an avalanche. I think that he got caught in between trying to play it cool and keep it calm and suave, because that's what Soto's very good at. But in the end, it kind of just translated to too much nonchalantness between not going after the Judge double, between, even last night, not running out of the box on the Green Monster single, not getting out of the box on the infield ground ball that could have been a hit. It just kind of all melded together into this weekend where he became the story. And he was going to be the story anyway. You just hate that it became this. It became a lack of effort, because his quotes before the series sounded very sure of himself. He said prior to the series about choosing the Mets, I made a decision. I'm happy that I made it. You look around, we have an unbelievable team, and it's going to be a good team for a long time. Those are the things you want to hear. Those are the things you expect to hear. And then these 3 games go by, and it feels like everything's kind of 180. But I want to let you go on your thoughts on Juan Soto.
I think you hit it right.
Yeah.
For me, Juan Soto, he's 26 years old. I think he's earned the reputation of being otherworldly in everything. You expect him to be unaffected by anything that comes his way, because he's our modern day Ted Williams. Like, this guy is,
who also hated the media, by the way. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Like, correct. Ted Williams, I think, was he's the guy that killed the tip in the cap when you're rounding on a home run. He got a lot of flack for how he handled the media too. Everything's beautiful in retrospect, but for Juan Soto, even me, I unfairly probably just assumed that nothing was going to affect this guy. And he seems to be affected a little bit. I think he's trying so hard to stay unaffected that it's creeped up into his subconscious a little bit. He's still playing fine. He's not in a batting 120, like when we signed Francisco Lindor.
Well, that's what I was going to go to next. I mean, I'll let you kick it off, though.
Yeah, he's so good that when he's not good, he's still okay. He's still doing all right. Like, he's still got an OPS in 815. He's still got an OPS plus of 133, but it doesn't have the same feel. He's swinging and missing a lot. I think he's tried so hard to be unaffected by the big contract, changing teams in New York City, big moments coming back, the fans booing him, turning their back on him. I think he tried so hard not to be affected by all these things that he's dialed it back a notch too low. And baseball is tough because you don't get a chance to step back and reassess and then go back at it like you do in football or even basketball. You play every day. You try not to address those little things because you don't want it to become an issue and you expect them to work it out. But it's become an issue, and it's not one. This is the beauty of New York City and the detriment on why some people can't handle it, because there's 700 articles about him not being hustling. But I don't think that it's lack of hustle because he's being lazy. I think it's the way he's prepared himself mentally to try not to overdo it, that it's just too far and he just needs to turn it up. First step, aggressive, hustle out of the box every time. This is him not running that ball out in the seventh or eighth inning where he half swung, and DJ LeMahieu, who played great defense this whole series, dove, and he might have been safe at first, probably would have been safe if he hustled out of the box. He's not a fast runner, but he needs to get back to being aggressive first and then backing it down. Go right away, and then you can shut it down. Just your first step you need to be aggressive. Again, at the plate, your first instinct means I'm going to kill this ball, and you're so good that if it's not a strike, I'm going to let it go. That's the shuffle that we saw. If you throw that pitch in the zone, oh, you're lucky that wasn't in the zone because I was about to crush that. He's just missing that killer instinct. He's been affected, and I think it needs to be addressed now. And Carlos Mendoza, after the ball off the wall last night where he didn't run, said, we'll talk to him about it, because it's not lackadaisical. It's not, I don't care. I think it's just, I've been trying to calm myself from this enormous situation that he's in, the highest paid professional athlete on the planet, huge expectations, all that goes into it. I think he has just dulled his senses a little bit too far. And he just needs to turn it back up a little bit. And I literally think that's all it is. Aggressive first step instinct that he needs to have, and everything will be fine. That's where I'm at with it.
So I've got three things that I want to say. One, Juan Soto has been booed before, but I think those boos have always been on pedigree. On this guy is one of the best hitters in the game. He might do damage to our team. Let's boo him. Like the same way you would boo Ohtani, the same way you would boo Harper, any of those things. These boos were personal, and I think that's like a unique crowd interaction. Like everything was very personal this weekend with Juan Soto. And I think that's, really the first time I can think of him experiencing that kind of thing. Like I don't think DC fans were booing him with vitriol when he came back there. Same thing with San Diego, because those were trades. So it's a unique thing. It was the first time Juan Soto chose where he wanted to play. The second thing is that you can see the passiveness of his demeanor in his plate approach. You can see it on all of his plate discipline statistics. His zone swing percentage is the lowest of his career. His swing percentage is the lowest of his career. His zone percentage in general, the pitches that he's seeing in the strike zone, is the highest of his career. His first pitch strike percentage is the highest of his career. The passiveness, people are catching on that Juan Soto, is having trouble pulling the trigger on first pitch strikes on pitches in the zone. Last night, got up 3-0 in a count against one of the Red Sox relievers. I think it was Slayton. Slayton just poured two fastballs inside, center cut, middle in. Didn't swing at either of them. Soto ends up getting out that at bat. That is becoming a theme, which is really unfortunate. The third thing, and it's something you touched on very briefly, but I want to hammer it home. Don't forget how bad 2021 was. Don't forget, Lindor's first year was brutal. You can go and look at the statistics, and they don't look that bad. He finished above league average offensively, hit 20 home runs, and a lot of that came off the back of those big September games when the Mets were fully out of it, specifically the 3-homer game against the Yankees. That first year was brutal. Clubhouse fights, making up lies about what actually happened, the thumbs down thing with Javier Baez. This does not even come close to that in my mind. And that was a much less talented Mets team with far fewer expectations. I think those two things are the biggest thing. The Mets are expected to be a World Series contender. They just inked the most expensive contract in the history of the sport. So naturally, when they're under this magnifying glass and things like this happen, it's going to get exacerbated and blown up and exaggerated into this huge story. I'm not trying to minimize it. I do think that Juan Soto should have hustled out of the box on the ball in Game 3 and the ball in Boston. I think that he should have went after that ball in right field and maybe could have smothered it and kept it in play. Those things are all true. But at the same time, I think that he's handling it to the best of his ability. I didn't love the quote last night that he's been hustling. I mean, you can point to stolen bases, all that stuff, whatever. The point is, we're 7 weeks, 8 weeks into the Juan Soto Mets era. There's 14 years and change to go. I think that a lot will be forgotten about from this past weekend. Unfortunately, if you're a Mets fan, you're going to have to wear it. Like, if you got Yankees friends, they're eating at you right now. You're going to be hearing it online, all that stuff. But Juan Soto is so good. I mean, he's still the second most valuable player on the team. He's still got an 800 OPS. He's sleepwalking through a very productive season still. That's the caliber of player he is. And in a week's time, if he makes one minor adjustment or has some minor attitude shift, this could be a forgotten story. It's kind of a nothing story, especially the Clappish article that came out yesterday was nothing. So I know that it sucks. Losing the Subway Series sucks, especially after going 4-0 last year. And it sucks that Juan Soto is at the center of it. But overall, it's just, I'm not worried. I'm just frustrated that it's even this much of a discussion.
Yeah, you nailed it. And again, it's he just needs to turn up the aggressiveness a little bit. Like when for instance, that in game 2 when he grounded out to end the game off Luke Weaver, he swung at the first pitch. I was so pumped because like
we hadn't seen that.
That's the killer instinct. Yeah. It didn't work out because hitting's really hard, but you have this aggressiveness. I think it's as simple as that. This is my last comparison. Juan Soto's going through it right now. We expected him to be unaffected. It's affected him a little bit. He needs to turn it up. When Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers, do you remember the drama that it was?
Yeah.
It was drama for like 2 months of then the return to Atlanta. He's talking about fired his agent. He was, at some point, I think it was a Kershaw quote that was like, yeah, we get it. It was tough. He's brave for a long time. We need him to let that go, and he needs to be a Dodger. Like, he said that in the media. So it was like a turning. Freddie Freeman, future Hall of Famer. Well, I think he was 30, 31 at the time of that.
He was a Brave for 10 years, an MVP, a World Series champion, not 1 year. Like, it's the scale. It was different.
It's correct. And that is the difference to me is we forget sometimes that there's a human element, that these guys that are, superhuman in the baseball uniform and on the field, sometimes we forget the mental human aspect of it. I expect this to be a footnote in the story of Juan Soto as a New York Met. Again, this is where Carlos Mendoza is going to address it. You need to get in his ear and tell him to just turn it on a little bit.
Yeah.
That's it. I think this is the reason why Starling Marte has been around for a while, trying to protect this guy. Emotionally, he's trying to help him, tell him how to relax, have some fun in the game of baseball again. It doesn't look fun to him because I think he's trying to just insulate himself and not outwardly affect. And I've been there before where you have taught yourself how to compartmentalize so many different things at such a high level that it's worked for you for years, and then all of a sudden doing that, compartmentalizing and ignoring, it doesn't work. And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, now I have accepted that something's happening to me. I need to find a different way to work it out, and I expect him to do that. This is leadership. This is the, we're talking about Lindor wearing that C on his chest. This is a time for you to earn that C. Talk to him. Hold him accountable. He needs to hustle. Again, lose yourself in the game of baseball. Hustle your butt off. Go get that fly ball. Nothing about the way he's played makes me mad at him. I am not disappointed in him. I am not upset with him. I wish it were I wish we didn't have to talk about it. As a player that's worn a uniform in a clubhouse, embrace your player and say, "Hey, bro, all that gone. Hustle. Let's go. Let's go. I see you. Let's do it." That's holding your guys accountable. Juan Soto, if he hears it from Francisco Lindor, he's gonna be like, "Ah, you're right, Cap. Like, you're right. Out of the box. Done. It's over. Guess what? Move on. We can talk about something else because it's back." So that's what I expect. I expect leadership to address it. I expect Juan Soto as a professional to accept it, and it'll be over. That's it.
Yeah, it comes down to the people in the clubhouse. I mean, it's no easy task for Carlos Mendoza managing what is a superstar laden roster with, sky high expectations. Again, plenty of silver linings to draw about the team. This is their first real skid of the year, and we're deep into May. Half game out of first, 10 games over 500, a far cry from where this team was at this point last year. That's the biggest thing, Mets fans who are listening. Just dive into your memory a little bit. Remember 2023. Remember selling at the deadline. Remember May of last year, how horrible things got, 11 games under. Remember 2021. Remember Rat Raccoon. Remember Thumbs Down. There have been way more low points in even just recent Mets history. Honestly, I'll do a little jab. I saw Braves fans celebrate less in 2022 when they swept us out of first place at the end of the season to win the division. I saw less fanfare and less mini documentaries posted than a regular season series win in the Subway Series in May. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that the noise is just loud because it's New York and it's big and it's the Subway Series and it's Juan Soto crossing town. I think if you zoom out and you just look at the facts of everything, yes, the effort deserves to be called into question, the hustle, all that. The performance, the runners in scoring position numbers are awful. The Mets are a bottom 10 team in every major category. It is frustrating to watch. But this team is talented, and I've seen far less competitive Mets teams in my lifetime. Way less than this team. A team that is basically in every game until the bitter end. The worm will turn. This is a tough week. You got to wear it as a Mets fan. But overall, this team is too talented. And there's too many leaders in this clubhouse. Guys that have been in Soto's position before, been under the scrutiny of New York media, to just let it fester and become something more than it is. So I'm glad I got to, this was almost therapeutic for me to talk it out with my good friend Jerry Blevins and really just hash it all out, because it's been if you're stuck in that echo chamber right now of like scrolling on social media and seeing the articles and seeing, your buddies are texting you or whatever, just put the phone down. It's all good. Mets are going to play at 6:45 tonight. They're going to get a win. They're going to beat the Red Sox. It's all good. They're playing good teams right now. They've just played the Yankees. They're playing the Red Sox right now. They play the Dodgers next. This is what's going to happen. The Mets are going to play good teams. They're going to face adversity. It's not going to be clean, easy series win after series win all season long. Trust in the process. Trust in Carlos Mendoza. Trust in this front office. This team is talented. They will prevail. That's all I got.
I dug back in while you were talking.
Sure.
Eloquently. I listened, but I wanted to get that quote from Clayton Kershaw and try to figure it out. Kershaw said that publicly, he said, "I hope that the Dodgers aren't second fiddle." And that was like,
that's fair.
He
I
called
think
him out in the media, and he talked about it later. He's like, I probably shouldn't have said it like that. He goes, I probably should have addressed Freddie Freeman directly himself first. But this is what holding each other accountable is all about. This is what This is the part of the baseball that I miss the most. I loved playing. I loved competing. I loved striking guys out and breaking bats and getting big outs. And, you know, I miss that dearly. But what I truly miss is the camaraderie in the clubhouse. I love being held accountable by my teammates and helping them be hold them accountable and being better because I want them to look at me like I'm pulling my weight and pushing each other to be better and seeing each other every day. This is where the clubhouse is your sanctuary. This is where also your clubhouse is your sounding board to where you need Francisco Lindor to come and say, "Hey, I see it. I understand it. I've been there. Let's just dial the aggressiveness up." This is where Carlos Mendoza, this is the hardest part about being a manager. When do you address the guy that just made the most lucrative sports deal in the history of the world? When do you go talk to him? When do you have a players only meeting? For example, you watch Pat Murphy in Milwaukee. They're underperforming. Pat Murphy's calling guys out left and right, calling out the front office, saying we're underperforming. Is that the right way? I don't know. Maybe that's what his guys need. Carlos Mendoza is now, I don't address Juan Soto because he's done it his whole career. You can overdo it as a manager, and you want your players to step up and be that. And you can also have players that do it too early that cause friction. It's a fine art of being a manager, being a leader in a clubhouse, when to let guys go, when to address it. It's time to address it. It's time to accept it and acknowledge it from Juan Soto and to say, okay, maybe I wasn't doing it. Not to us. You don't owe shit to us. I
Right.
don't want to hear him say that to us.
Yeah.
I don't even need him to, if I were Francisco Lindor, I don't need him to stand in front. Like, I've had players apologize in front of everybody, and it's not that big a deal, to be honest. It just needs to be addressed, accepted, and get back to it. Get back to work.
That's all
That's
it is.
it.
Yep. And like, this just makes me think of bonus kudos to Lindor and Mendoza, who they didn't have that person to hold them accountable. Like Lindor had no clubhouse leaders in 2021 that were there to kind of hold him accountable for what was going on. And, I think they exacerbated that situation by bringing in Javier Baez, who was like adding poison to an already poisonous antidote or whatever. Concoction, not antidote. With Mendoza, I mean, rookie manager under insane scrutiny last year after being 11 games under 500. Fans were getting on him for being too lackadaisical, not getting fired up, whatever. Soto has these people in the room. And I think that's the biggest saving grace is that, these Mets teams have been through a ton over the past 4 years, and New York media is relentless. I have no issue, by the way, with Juan Soto not wanting to do mic'd up on Sunday Night Baseball because everyone knows how that conversation would have been. It would have just been about Aaron Judge for 10 minutes and distracted him when defense is already kind of a tough thing for him. No issue with that. If you have issue with that, I don't really know what to say to you. Point is, things will be okay. They're the right people in the room. Good.
I have no issue with the mic'd up as well. I do have an issue with not addressing the media after the game.
Yes. Didn't love that. Yeah.
No. So that's another
That's
thing.
fuel to the fire.
Yeah, and I love Cespedes, one of my favorite teammates. He did that on occasion. Doesn't work in New York, my man. It does not work. They will bury you out of out of spite for you not. They'll anytime that you would get the benefit of the doubt if you are rude to the writers and you don't hold yourself accountable and make yourself available, you will get buried, and rightfully so. I wouldn't do it, but they will. If you can't, they're going to ask hard questions. If you can't dispel those by being there, they're going to write whatever they want. And a lot of the time, these guys want to write sensational stuff to get us to click on it.
And it works. Even in
it
2025. Still works.
Absolutely. It's worked for 30 years, 40 years. You write, it's why tabloids exist, all this. If you're not there to say no, then they will say, no comment means yes. That
words
kind of
are their weapon, and if you give them no words, that's their best weapon. So
yeah, so
that's another learning lesson from all this. Yeah.
It's not because he doesn't care. It's just I'm ready to move on. Just play one game where you remember, like, hey, hustle out of the box. This is the equivalent of a pitcher not covering first, Edwin Diaz. It's not because he doesn't care. It's because he not thinking in his head that he needs to do that if this happens. This is what I'm talking. My Ellis, my son, just turned 7. We had T-ball yesterday. When the ball comes to them, if there's a runner on base, these kids are like, oh crap, what do I do? And you're trying to instill with them, first of all, they're going to get it wrong because baseball's complicated. But between pitches, if the ball comes to you, what am I going to do with it? These are things that you have to reiterate to yourself. Otherwise, this is what happens. If I hit the ball, I'm hustling out of the box. I can shut it down later. If the ball's hit in the air, my first few steps have to be aggressive, and then I can back it off. These are just little things. Again, Juan Soto stolen bases, the way he plays, this isn't laziness. This is just he's created himself a little bit of a bad habit that needs to be addressed now, and we will never talk about it again.
Well put, my friend Jerry Blevins. Let's get some wins this week so we can talk about that instead. Okay. Mets pitching staff rotation continues to be great. The runners in scoring position numbers continue to be bad. Mets continue to make good contact. I had a bunch of numbers here. I'm gonna save the audience.
The defense on the infield, it's a little bit suspect
I'm
to
concerned.
me. We gotta have.
Hasn't been great.
Gotta have that addressed. Our offense, like David Peterson, like he gets ground balls and. He's going to need the defense to hold up for him. Lindor
so does Clay Holmes. So does Griffin Canning. Like,
correct.
It's not going away. So
let's lock it in. And
kind of how this team was built, by the way. Good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out Kodai Senga for a great start last night. We didn't really get to talk about it because we wanted to keep this Subway Series.
By the way.
Yeah, it was necessary, and I got to go back into the war zone after this. So I'm sure it'll all be undone.
Chopping this up and trying to figure out how to put this out. But
congrats on the Meg World Series. Congrats, guys. You won. Thank you so much for listening to this therapy session. If it was therapeutic for you too, leave a like on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review. Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a review. Those really help. A rating, whatever it is. We appreciate you all. We will see you next week to recap the Boston series and the Dodgers series. I'll be there on Saturday. If you want to say what's up, please do. That's going to be a fun game. The tide will turn. First road bump of what's going to be a very successful season. Keep the faith and ignore all the noise. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. Therapy is good for us all.
It's good for everyone.
Thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time where we'll be back. Station.